All right. So, there we go. Okay, 10.5, we're talking about Pythagorean theorem, where a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. You okay?
Yeah, I got you.
Sweet.
This is similar to that.
This is it.
It's just
Kinda. Yeah, okay. All right, so look. Ready? Okay, the legs. They call some sides of the triangle the legs. The legs are usually the shortest sides on the triangle. The hypotenuse is always the longest side on a triangle. Okay? In mathematics, we always let the hypotenuse be represented with the letter C, and we represent the legs with the letters A and B. It doesn't necessarily mean that A is the very shortest of the legs and B is the next shortest of the legs. A lot of people do it that way, but it's not a rule. As long as you make both of the legs the letter A or B, it's fine. But the C must always be the hypotenuse, okay? Now, the Pythagorean theorem says that the A squared, which is a leg, plus a B squared, which is the other leg, should equal the hypotenuse squared for it to be a right triangle. And Pythagorean theorem only is valid on a right triangle. It's not every triangle. It only works on truly right triangles. Right triangles are the ones that have the 90-degree angle in them. Sometimes they're marked with this little symbol and sometimes they're not. Okay? So remember that the legs are connected by this little symbol. So if I had to label an A and a B, these two things would represent the A and the B. The longest side is always opposite the opposite the right angle, and it's the hypotenuse. So if we were to work this out, in this particular book, they have a tendency to go c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. It's the same thing, okay? So don't freak out on it. So they're saying the hypotenuse, which is the longest side, would be equal to a squared plus b squared. So they're calling the a the 12 and the b the 9. So notice not necessarily did they choose the shortest one to be the A and the next one to be the B, did they? Doesn't matter. The two legs squared and then added together. So 12 squared is 144. 9 squared is an 81. Then you add those two things together to get the 225. Now, we've been doing square roots for a while now, right? So we're going to, whatever, in equations, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So I have a c squared here, but the hypotenuse is just a single value of c. You have to take the square root of both sides. So it's square root of this side and then the square root of this side, because equations have to be worked equally. When you finish, you will get the answer plus or minus 15. Now, plus or minus 15 is a legitimate answer, because negative 15 times negative 15 would create a positive 225, right? But is it a reasonable answer for me having a triangle? Right, right. Because this is an actual distance or a shape, I know I'm not going to have a negative option in my answer. But sometimes you will, and that's okay, but make sure that you're paying attention to what it is you're finding. We're finding a distance here, and we're not going to have a negative distance, okay? So see if you can find the value of A in this. Try it. I'll give you a second to set it up, and then I'm going to set it up. Make sure make sure your setup is correct before you start doing some math. You won't always be finding just the C. You're going to find whatever is missing. It's the same formula, just put the things where they belong, okay? And that's why it's important to recognize that which one belongs to what, if that makes sense. Did you get it set up right? Did you put the 37 where the C was? Now, if you're someone who can't get away from a squared plus b squared equals c squared, that's fine. You can rearrange it, but still make sure that the 37 goes where the c is. Okay? Yes, sir? No. You have to square it before you subtract it. Okay? So you have to do the 19 squared first. You always simplify before you start rearranging and moving things from one side to the other. So we need a 19 squared. To know what that is, I get 361. And then we need the 37 squared, which is 1369. Huh, that's kind of cool. 1369. Okay. Yeah, now we can subtract to solve our equation. Good job. We're going to minus 361 from both sides. So now what? How did you get that?
You have to square root the
1008? Okay. So if I take 1008, second square root 1008 equals, and then I have to talk. There we go. Okay. Now, I believe the directions said round to the nearest 100th up in our first example. So let's practice that because your homework is going to ask you to round to the nearest 100th today. Some of us are not very good at rounding. 100th, not 10th this time. All right, so we have 31.749. So we have 31.749, and that would be equal to the value of A. But I have to round to the nearest 100th. That means this is the tenths, this is the hundredths column. So that's the last number that I need in my answer is in that second place. But I have to look at the third number to see if I bump up or stay the same. This 9 tells me what happens to this 4. It's going to bump up. So my final answer is going to be 31.75 is equal to the value of A. You okay? Right, you don't double round like that. A lot of students try to do that. Don't do that. Go to the number that you need in your answer and then look one right behind it. You probably have done something wrong. Yes. That's a great way to check it. At least, pay attention to it, okay? That's a good answer. All right. Here's a real world problem, and this is a lot of the geometry problems when you get next year. They're going to be story problems kind of like this. Something's casting a shadow. You remember those from, I'm sure you've seen those over the years. Or the sunrise is coming up and it's casting a shadow. Or the man's looking out through his binoculars at a mountain 6 miles away. That type of thing. So it's not unusual to see something is leaning against a building. All right, so let's pretend that there is a ladder leaning against the building. The ladder is 14 feet long. How far away from the house has the ladder been placed? In other words, I'm looking for the distance on the base there, aren't I, at the bottom? So let's set that one up. What did you get to set up? Perfect. A squared plus 12 squared is equal to 14 squared. And we know it's a right triangle. They gave us the symbol, right? So that's good. So now let's do the math. A squared plus 144 squared. I always want to do this one backwards. I always want to say 169, and I know that's 13, but for some reason, maybe it's the highway. I don't know.
13.
Yeah. All right. Subtracting 144 from both sides. 52. So A squared is equal to a 52. Find your square root of that. Remember, we're going to go to the nearest 100th. So A would equal 7.2111. I need to end right here. So this one is telling me to just not worry about anything. So A equals 7.21. Okay? Are you fairly comfortable with this at this point? Okay, good. Don't get overly confident, because when you get in a hurry, you're going to not pay attention to the details. Yes, sir.
How are we supposed to know which one is B and C?
Are you talking about the next example or this one? The hypotenuse will always be the C, and the hypotenuse is always the longest side, and it's generally opposite the right angle symbol, if there is one. Okay? Yeah, A and B are the short sides, and it doesn't matter which one's which. All right, look at this next example at the bottom. We have to check to see if triangles are actually right triangles. They didn't even give us a picture, so I don't have anything to go by. So how will I figure that out? No, we won't draw a picture. That's not going to help us.
Do it. I do it in order.
Well,
Like, longest side to the nearest number.
talk to me. I'm loving
You
it.
have to find the longest side for like
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
C can always be the one.
Right, right, exactly, Jay. Okay, we know for a fact that C has to be the longest side. So we've automatically determined that part. So the biggest number has to be equal to the value of C. So if you were going to write A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared, we would need which number to replace the letter C? 19. Okay, because it was the biggest number that was there, so therefore it must be the hypotenuse. Now we're going to test it to see if the A squared and the B squared, and we can order them however we want to, truly do add up to make the C squared. So the 14 times the 14, that's the one I always mess up. Okay, so there's that one. And I know this one. And I can't remember this one. That's 1, 3, 6, 9. No, is that right? No. No. I was looking at the wrong part of the problem from above. Delete. Okay, how about 361? Thank you. Okay, so 196 plus 225. I have a feeling that's going to be a little bit big. Yeah? All right, let's see. So I get 421. Did I do okay on my math?
Yes.
Cool. All right. So, based on the numbers and the results of these numbers, would you say that this is or isn't a right triangle?
Yes. Well, it's not a right triangle.
It's not a right triangle. Okay, it is a triangle, but it is not a right triangle. So the answer here is no, and it's because these two did not turn out to be true. It's bigger, but they has to be equal. The A side squared added to the B squared has to truly equal the C squared value, okay? Not just conveniently, put them out there. The math has to work. Now, there's something called, I always forget the name of it. Where is it? A Pythagorean triple. That is where you have counting numbers. Are you listening? Because you're going to have to do this on your homework, and this is not in your notes. So you might put Pythagorean triple. Just put a little. That's a special type of right triangle. No, but that would be, that's cool. That's a Pythagorean triple is when you use counting numbers that actually create the Pythagorean formula accurately. They actually work. And by counting numbers, we're talking about whole numbers, okay, with no decimals or anything. So one of the most famous is the 3, 4, and 5. 3 squared plus 4 squared does equal 5 squared, right? So we would have a 9 plus a 16. It does equal a 25. 3, 4, and 5 are numbers that we would use in our everyday counting, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if I said, is this a right triangle? You would say yes. Is this a Pythagorean triple? You would say yes, because everything became a counting number. There were no decimals, there were no radicals. Okay, so if you were to have something like, let me see if I can come up with a good one. I can't come up with one that's not just obviously bad. Let's see if I. How about like this one? Well, no, order doesn't really matter as long as it works. All right. So let's look at number 20. How about number 24? This is 24 off your assignment today. So if you just follow me here, you'll have it written down. Just transfer it to your paper and you'll be good, okay? But this is a good example of one that it is a right triangle, but it will not be a Pythagorean triple, okay? The numbers are 8, 31.5, and 32.5. All right, so if we're going to check to see if this is a right triangle, what would we do? What's the C value going to be?
The 32.5.
32.5. So that means 8 squared plus 31.5 squared has to equal 32.5 squared. So let's check it out and see if it turns out to be good. So 8 squared, I got that one. Somebody else has to get the others. I got 64. 992 point what? Not 0.5? 0.25. Okay. 999.25. Gotcha. Let's see. Cool. 0.25. 1056.25. All right. So let's do the math on this. 992.25 plus 64.
That equals 1,000. Well, 56.25. So 4 off.
No, it's perfect.
32.5.
Right? Did it turn out okay? All right. So is this a right triangle? Yes. But was this right triangle composed of whole numbers, counting numbers? No. So yes, it is a right triangle, but no to the triple. Yeah, it doesn't have decimals. It won't be radicals, things that are irrational. If it works, that's fine. If it works, it's fine, okay? So that's kind of the main thing on that one, okay?
For the 32.5 squared, my mind ended up saying it instead.
But see, so that's why you need to be careful, okay? Don't get overly confident. All right. So this is fairly easy homework, honestly. Your assignment's at the top of the notes. Come see me if you want to check a couple answers, but do make sure you're rounding to the nearest hundredth. Okay? You can skip 36. I'll help you with that on Monday.
That's perfect. Yeah, I'm like, this ain't gonna work.
Okay. Stop. Y'all are killing me.